cooking it.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles with over 300 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com, just for Discovering Trek listeners. Fansets, our pins have character.
Hey, DT listeners, what's shaking? Sara and Kasey here, and this is Discovering Trek Enterprise. Welcome to the First Frontier. We two hecklers at movie night are back to chit-chat about another episode of What of Enterprise. This is the first full series watch through for Sara, and it's a rewatch for me. Today we're talking about Rogue Planet. This episode originally showed up on the airwaves or your cable box about 20 years ago on March 20th, 2002. So, if in the last 2 decades you haven't watched this episode, maybe you never will. But just in case, you can put us on pause, fire up Paramount Plus, Amazon, Netflix, physical discs, whatever, and watch the wannabe predators of Rogue Planet. And then come on back here and listen to us talk about space jungles, tricky hunting, and Archer having a living campfire story. Woof woof, that's what I say, and off we go.
Before we get into Rogue Planet, we want to remind you that we want to hear from our listeners about everything Enterprise. So, how can all of you get in touch with us with your thoughts on the first season of Star Trek Enterprise?
Oh gosh, there's a bunch of ways listeners can do that. Of course, they can go to trekgeeks.com/contact and leave an email right there to give us their thoughts. Or hey, on Twitter or Facebook, all you have to do is search for Discovering Trek and you can leave us a message there. You can leave us a voicemail by visiting our website and hitting the big blue button. Please remember that any comments you leave us might be used in a future episode of Discovering Trek. Enough of that. Let's get on to the pie chart. Slices of pie, everybody. We're getting into it. Sara?
It's a real thing.
What did you give Rouge Planet?
I gave it 4.5 slices of pie out of 6 possible slices of pie. I liked this episode. I thought it was a very classic Trek, much better than some of the other episodes with planet and aliens. I don't know. Good description.
Yeah.
But again, it was really lacking in the Hoshi and Mayweather action, in my opinion. So that's what kind of demerited a couple of slices for tomorrow, leftovers.
Well, there you go. I gave it a 4 slices with some a la mode. I thought they did a nice job of showing some character growth for Archer, fair representation of hunters and non-hunters. I very much enjoyed the subtle and sometimes not subtle Vulcan ribbing being given to Archer. And it was a nice slower paced character episode. And hey, it was visually different. Very dark visually. And you know what else is going to be really dark?
What's that?
My rhyming.
Oh, have some faith.
Oh.
Dazzle me with it. Let's go.
I shall razzle and dazzle.
Ooh, double.
So here we go, peoples. Because Archer can't sit still for a decent photo, Tripp fails as a photographer right from the get-go. T'Pol gets in a really good zinger. The painting at Starfleet Command won't be a dead ringer. Hey, what do you know? You could not have planned it. Not a system to be found, yet there's a rogue planet. The crew shuttle down to the surface to see what's what. Malcolm has more badges than Archer. That's the scuttlebutt. Our crew find a camp, but no one is home. They meet the Eska. On a hunt, they do roam. There's something going on with the hunters' group. They seem a little quiet, hiding the real scoop. The captain sees a vision that is impossible out there. A human woman dressed in night sleeping wear. The hunters give Archer grief and side eye. One group hunts wolves, another off to mineral springs nearby. The hunt is really for wraiths who are intelligent and sly. One hunter gets attacked on the chest, but not on the thigh. Archer gets another vision. Who or what can she be? We have a story centered on an archer mystery. Turns out the hunters can detect the wraith's fear, and they use that advantage 4 days out of the year. The telepathic shapeshifter asks Johnny for help with a sincere plead. Can the captain get a solution with action and speed? Archer shares his outrage with his concerned bridge crew. We must think of something. There must be something we can do. Phlox creates a compound to mask the wraith's smell, and it turns out this solution works out quite well. The Eska leave, shut out, with no trophy in hand. The Yeats poem come alive, thanks Archer for the life-saving plan. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. So there you go.
I like it. That works. I think it was nothing dark about that. I think it was light and airy, like a spring day.
Just my soul.
Oh boy. All right. So what do we want to say about this?
Well, it gets me thinking. Does it get you thinking?
A little bit. I don't remember much of it.
Okay. Well,
the show is so forgettable to me. It's just painful. I feel so badly.
I don't think you should feel badly at all. It doesn't resonate a lot of the time so far this season.
Yeah, I'll with a couple of these episodes that I watched like 2 or 3 in a day. I was trying to get a little bit caught up on things, and I would be like, this was a really good episode, and it would follow up with another one. I'm like, another really good episode. I'm really excited. But 2 days later, I'm like, oh, what did I watch?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it feels like, fast food or delivery pizza, which is great at the moment. And then 2 days later, you're like, well, okay.
Yeah.
But I think there were definitely some very interesting aspects in this episode. It's a decent Archer-driven episode.
Yes, he is tolerable.
Right?
For him leading this episode, he was tolerable, for sure.
Yeah. He's not a jerk the entire time.
No, it's just, is this an ensemble show or is it not?
No.
That's the only thing that I'm starting to kind of just be a little frustrated with. And that's why I made the comment about Hoshi and Mayweather, because they're just
window dressing.
Window dressing. They just ghosts that glide past the camera with a couple of one-liners that are not helpful at all.
Right? I mean, on all this stuff we have with, Archer and T'Pol have a couple of really good interactions.
Yeah.
And then they have a great talk in the tent where Archer opens up and they both listen to each other a little bit more than they have been previously.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that refreshing because it was like, okay, Archer, I know I'm seeing this thing that can't possibly be here, but I'm seeing it, and I've done scans to see if there's any great pot on this planet, and there isn't, so my mind isn't screwed up, and I wasn't asleep, and he's not as just I'm right, and T'Pol, respectfully listens, but doesn't agree. Says, hey, what about this or this, or hey, maybe go up and have Phlox check you out and see if something's going on. And Archer bristles a little bit on that, but not how we've seen him with other stuff where it's just a flat out, no, you're wrong. So that growth was amazing. But to counter it, like you're saying, Hoshi and Archer are there while T'Pol, and Malcolm troop off at the beginning. So when the first two Eska come back, it's obvious that our Hoshi has done her job because they can understand the Eska. They're translating it.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't shown. It's not even mentioned. And that was a bit of a bummer. Like, hey, T'Pol, Malcolm come back and go, how can we understand them? And Archer goes, well, Hoshi kicked butt and got the translation going, within a half hour or something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it was
yeah, it almost seems like and this is in no way a jab at the T'Pol character or the writers, because I'm really enjoying her character a lot, and I think she's the forerunner of the show right now. But maybe they should have skipped out that tent talk with her and had it be Mayweather or Hoshi for an opportunity for them to bond with the captain and give them some lines. I think it would have been a great moment for any real character to be in that, other than Tripp or T'Pol, because they're the only ones that are ever having these moments of growth with the captain.
I think that really shows the problem of the first season, where they were trying to make a big three and really focus on them.
Yeah.
After we had, I think, very strong, more ensemble shows beforehand. And then this flip, and it's like, I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed Archer getting dropped down a peg every now and again in this episode.
Right?
It's great.
Keep it coming.
I was just like, hey, to Paul, it's like, hey, you know what? Vulcans are revered for what they do, for their accomplishments, not the way they look. And I was like, nice zinger. There you go. Malcolm, 28 Eagle Scout merit badges, and Archer only has 26.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. The hunting group, I love them. They just give Archer grief left and right, little side eyes, little semi-snarky comments, and it was just, right. This is great. Just keep doing that. And then, what about this? I think when T'Pol was talking with Archer and she questions, if he'd be so interested in finding this person in the jungle if it was a scantily clad man.
Right.
Bam!
Would he?
Smack.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I don't know how to best describe it, but I like the hunters had that, how can I describe it without, it was the wake up call that Archer needed, that he's not the tough guy. He's so straight laced. Like it's like the polo shirt guy at the country club getting his ass handed to him by the guy that like works in the kitchen, who's like the man's man, like you know how to, you're good with your hands. Like meanwhile,
a Tybo. You took totally. A Tybo class and you want to fight me?
Yeah, that's what I liked. It was kind of the like, sit down, son. Like you don't really know what it's like out there in space. And I think that that's something that he needs to be reminded of, is that he's been coddled and raised on Earth with very little exposure to the realities. And so when you see these episodes that drop hints of like these situations and these planets and these aliens that exist out there, it's kind of a good reminder to him of being like, you're going to get your butt handed to you a few times and you need to accept it and take those as learning opportunities and don't sulk and be a little baby about it. So that was kind of what I liked about it, was the kind of the ribbing and the bugging them and just calling them out. It was good.
There was an older sibling feel.
Yeah.
To all the hunters. And it's like, okay, this is the youngin'. This is the one we're going to give crap to, who, wants to play with the big boys and doesn't, hasn't figured it all out yet. And the hunters were like great, taking Malcolm with them. And even though they were, trying to hide a secret from him of what they were really hunting, essentially, and it was like, okay, so that was deep. But they made sure, take care of our guest.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are more well-rounded characters than a straight-up villain or hero. And it's like generationally coming to this planet, and for only 4 days out of the year. And I mean, I don't know how long their year is, but I was like, okay, that makes sense. And Tripp's fascination with taking like crappy pictures.
That ancient camera, what is that? You'd think they'd have like contact lenses they're wearing that would take photos by that point, when you think about the technology we have just today. Brutal. I
was laughing when he's like walking around those thermal vents and all this stuff. He doesn't fully even stop to take the picture and then move. He's just continuously moving. I go, your photo albums must be wretched, my friend.
blurry.
I guess we know why somebody from Florida broke up with him, because if that's the stuff he's sending in his communiques, she's like,
Not
nah,
interested.
I don't think so. You know what I am interested in? I think you're interested in?
Fansets.
You got it.
Oh my God. Discovering Trek listeners, we want to thank Fansets for being the exclusive sponsor on Discovering Trek. The Fansets crew are constantly working to put out the best product available and to come up with new designs and product releases. There are more wonderful new products out right this moment. There's the fantastic Discovery Enterprise Command Delta Pin and Magnet, the TNG All Good Things full-size Delta, and the Voyage Home character pins from your favorite series. Amazing full-size and mini Delta pins, and of course, wonderful non-Trek items like Rick and Morty, DC Bombshell, Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo, Ultraman, and DC Comics Classics. There are hundreds of pins and accessories for you at fansets.com. So right after listening to us, or if you can multitask while you're listening to us, go to fansets.com, scroll along all the amazing pins offered, load up your cart, enter the special code word Discovering Trek in all caps with no spaces at checkout for an amazing 10% off your entire order. And don't forget, if you are in the United States of America and spend more than $30, you will also get free shipping.
Free shipping? Man, Fansets. Our pins have character, and we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Mm-hmm. And how? What's the chef got going for us? I am really curious to know what the special is, because I feel like this episode is slowly losing points for me because I'm just so unable to remember anything else about it.
Well, chef special of the day, my friend, are leftovers.
Fair enough. But if we warm it up right and add a little fresh seasoning on it, it could be just fine.
If you have a side of barbecue sauce, it can help many a thing.
Everything
except for fish.
Yeah.
Except for fish. That would suck. So please don't do that unless you really like that combo, and then I'm not going to judge you. But yeah, let's start off here. I got a question for you, Sarah.
Bring it on.
Do you think this episode could have been like a Riker TNG episode or a Chakotay Voyager episode?
I think this could have been a Cisco episode.
Ooh, do tell.
I don't know. I just see him because it's very like emissary. Like, what am I looking at? What am I doing? I'm kind of like, it just has that feel of like, is this real life? Is this just fantasy? To keep on quoting Queen. I mean, between Riker and Chakotay, I would see it. I don't think it would be a good Riker episode. I think he would, I think he'd ruin it with his weird stance and his toxic masculinity. I think Chakotay would be desensitive, and I think this would be a really good Chakotay episide. I like Chakotay. I need to watch some more Voyager.
Well, there you go.
I need more time in my day. I've been watching Picard again,
right?
And I'm like, I had to put DS9 on hold because I wanted to watch some Picard, and now I'm like, I want to watch some Chakotay episodes. Oh my goodness!
I think if you just sleep 2 hours a day, you can fit in all the Star Trek.
Red Bull, our new sponsor, coming next year.
Oh God!
Yikes.
Never sleep again. Yeah, for this episode, it was really interesting. I kind of just kept looking and going, was this maybe an idea that had been a couple of series ago and wasn't quite right, like you were saying, for certain characters, but they just kept, just hold it. Maybe this might be an evergreen story that we can bring in later, and we'll see what's going on. And so, it was like okay.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. I mean, part of it in my mind, I was also questioning, is this like a partial visual representation that Johnny Archer has of his mom? I mean, if his mom was reading him this Yates poem, when he was young, what clicked into his head of why this vision? Now, it was in the episode, it doesn't say, oh, you look just like my mom. but something going on there of, or it, could have been an aunt a teacher, a family friend, somebody else that this young child brings all these things in together. And I thought that was a pretty interesting story thing to dive into somebody's mind, but go back further where it's not a instantaneous recognition of a memory. So, add a little mystery to everything going on.
Yeah. Did you find it was a predictable episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, okay, he's definitely seeing something there because they don't want to show the captain being psychotic or off his rocker. So it has to be something. It's obviously not a human woman at all, but it has to be real in some way.
Yeah.
So it was predictable. This something that I find a little odd in everything. Would any aliens that are basically human, would they ever say that they've never seen humanoids before? Would the Eska call themselves humanoids? Do Klingons consider themselves humanoids? Was that just a thing of the translator coming through?
Yeah. I mean, what does that mean? Bipedal species or what? Like,
I don't
humanoid,
know.
you have to be like a human? Like, well, what if Klingons didn't know humans existed, then where did the word humanoid come from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just always kind of go, boy, it would seem just a little
Klingonoid.
more realistic on this. Klingonoid. Yeah. Eskanoid. I mean, I was doing it. Vulcanoid.
Borganoid.
I'm annoyed. But yeah, and then in this episode we touched on it earlier, but the question: did Hoshi work on translation of the Eska language? And it's like, yeah, she did, and yeah, she cranked it, and that is her gig, and she obviously did it very well, and wasn't on some side mission to find out what the Eska's favorite food is. It's just like, no, do your job, and she does it. And that, it threw me a little watching the episode. I had to rewind that scene a couple of times of, when T'Pol and Malcolm come back with the two other hunters, and everybody's speaking English, speaking standard right away. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
she did what she's supposed to do, and some recognition there. So chefs, we're getting fed, but this is, I think, a feeling of it could have been something fresher, could have been something that was focusing on some other characters, like you brought up, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel bad for Billingsley, for Phlox being put in that makeup for basically, a day? I mean, hopefully they were shooting other stuff with him.
Think.
That's it.
Yeah.
Ay.
Well, it just seems to be the most logical thing, in my opinion. If you're going to go with a really classic Trek episode of here's a planet, and it's either like, oh, a species being displaced or a species being taken advantage of, shake it up and don't do the classic three people. Bring in somebody else to make the story a little bit more unique, so it's not being compared to a half dozen other episodes from other series that's just like it.
Can you imagine Phlox on that hunting party?
Yeah.
That would have been fantastic. That boy would have peppered all of them with so many questions.
Yes.
I think they would have said after one day, okay, doctor, you need to go back to your ship now.
Yeah.
We're
cutting enough. You off.
Thanks. You're done.
You're voted out of the planet.
He's all, but no, I want more drayjin meat. Drayjin meat with everyone's celery, please.
Oh my goodness. I love it.
He's a fun character. Love him.
He is a fun character.
You know what else is fun?
What's fun?
This thing you made up that we haven't had for quite some time.
Because there's nothing fun about Enterprise. I am working to put as little effort into this podcast as possible.
Oh, that makes
I'm
me
just
feel
kidding.
good. Ladies and gentlemen.
We have a good team. You get all the Trello boards ready and I do all the editing. So it's a good 50-50, but
yeah.
just watching it can be a chore sometimes. So to try and think of something for the Enterprise Funhouse is a challenge.
It is a challenge.
But you're bringing it back. So what have you got?
I think I found something, my friend. I love seeing actors that we've seen in other sci-fi shows. I like bringing it up and you know recognizing the face or the voice and going, oh, that's blah blah blah. So we had Connor O'Farrell in this episode as one of the hunters.
Okay.
O'Farrell's been in episodes of X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dark Skies, and also DS9.
All right.
And then we had Eric Pierpoint, and as soon as I saw this guy's eyes, it's like, oh, I know who you are. So Pierpoint has been in an episode of
O'Farrell for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Pierpoint.
Voyager, Sliders, Babylon 5, DS9, TNG, Time Tracks, and the big one was he starred as George Francisco on the TV version of Alien Nation.
And most recently, I just saw him on an episode of Parks and Recreation where he plays the chief police officer. And I actually just referenced a scene from that the other day because I love that when they kept talking about Tammy 1 being a real piece of work. It was a real piece of work.
Well, I know you enjoy being called a piece of work sometimes.
That's my goal in life, is to be referred to as a real piece of work by a bunch of disgruntled, angry men in my office. That Sarah's a real piece of work. Yeah, I am. That's because I made you work or I made you do your job or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, it would be a badge of honor.
Wear it proudly.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and then, you know, we get the little tie-in with O'Farrell having co-starred basically with Gary Graham.
Yeah.
In Alien Nation. And it's just, I love seeing this, especially when I think the actors are solid. And if they keep getting hired, you know that the production must appreciate their talent. They must be relatively easy to work with because they keep getting invited back. And then it's just, you know, just a nice little way to think about things. It kind of throws me back to then thinking about these other series just a little bit. And it's like, oh, yeah. Oh, I dug him when he was in this. Dug him when he was that. And it's like, okay. So, yes, in a difficult at times to watch first season, this was a definite Enterprise Funhouse moment for me. And I was thankful for it.
Did you know that Eric Pierpoint read for the role of Riker?
Ooh, I did not. That would have been interesting.
Very interesting. I was just looking at a little bit of fun facts for this episode. This is the only time the crew of the Enterprise used their green glowing night vision gear.
Good, because that looked so dated and like you went to Toys R Us in the kids' spy section. And they're like, hey, here you go. Green goggles with a metal headband. That's
classic.
The future, people.
Ooh, well, I think we kind of, this was a leftover episode. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just... No,
it was fine. I'm finding a lot of these episodes are fine.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, move on. Okay.
I'm ready for the next one.
Whatever. Oh, I am too. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to close out our tab. That does it for our coverage on this episode of Rogue Planet. We'll be back next time to discuss some Ferengi antics in Acquisition. Yay! As we continue to celebrate the 20th anniversary year of Enterprise. Until then, remember that you can subscribe to Discovering Trek by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or by heading to discoveringtrek.com. Heck, you can find us on Twitter. Look for Discovering Trek. Check us out there. Leave us a message.
Totally. Nice. Do it. If you are enjoying what we are doing here on Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, please consider supporting us on Patreon. As a subscriber, you can get access to the unedited recordings of episodes as well as exclusive content and great subscriber rewards like our annual supporters pins from the Fansets folks and our exclusive Trek Geeks Podcast Network t-shirt. We would like to take a moment to recognize the following amazing producers of Discovering Trek. Thank you all for your support. Mike Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Lionel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Jim McMahon, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Jamie Rogers, Chris Trebuzio, Ken Tripp, Christina Werther, and Jess Vashon, and of course, the senior producer of Discovering Trek, Jude Tatman.
Jude Tatman. If you'd like to become a producer of Discovering Trek or get access to the raw audio for Discovering Trek episodes, head on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks for all the details. Since we're off to get some more drayjin meat, a little barbecue sauce, and maybe some other dipping sauces, we're going to dip out to out.
Bye!
Bye.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.